If you're listening to the Clent Stewart Show on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and you are not watching on YouTube, you're missing out.
Definitely missing out. We got some stuff we'll show on the whiteboard today, so you won't be able to see it. But
Yeah,
go back and watch it.
You're missing the intro. Professor Clent has the clipboard out. He's ready to teach you guys. Real quick, though, I'm Ryan Gilbert. He is Clent Stewart. This is the Clent Stewart Show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Kansas State coming off of a 1-1 trip out in Kansas City, a win over Mississippi State, a loss to Nebraska in the final moments. Clent, in a minute, is going to break down kind of what went wrong there late. But Clent, you look at Vegas. Vegas obviously knows a thing or two. You're underdogs in both of these games. You go 1-1. I don't care what you say. That's still a successful trip.
Yeah, it is. And for Kansas State, obviously, you want to come out on top. You want to win the tournament, win the championship, right? But two really good teams, and two Power 5 conference teams. Mississippi State, obviously, with Josh Hubbard and what he can do with the basketball in his hands, we knew it was going to be a nice matchup between him and PJ Haggerty, and obviously we came out on top on that one. And then Nebraska, Coach Hoiberg is a tremendous coach, obviously coached at the NBA level for the Chicago Bulls, coach for Iowa State, and he does a really good job, has some really good sets that he runs for his guys, just an offensive-minded coach. And I thought he had those guys ready to play really from the beginning, even on the other side of the ball, the defensive side. I thought they really got after us early on the defensive side. And then, and then, like I said, they play hard. And that's a team that's, I believe they say they have the longest winning streak right now in college basketball dating back to last year. And so, they're going to be a good team in the Big Ten. And he has some really good things going there for them. So for us, it's unfortunate, obviously losing, the way we did at the end with the foul call, but it's also a learning lesson for our team. And I'm sure Coach Tang is, saying that with our guys, they obviously can learn from it and learn that we got to start a little bit faster and, just got to play a little bit better from the jump. And there's a lot of things that we can take away, I think, that are really positive from that game. So it was a hard-fought game. It was a lot of fun for the fans, in a one-point game, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm sure the players had fun playing in it. But I think that the hardest part about that, when I talked to Coach Tang afterwards, was, it really simulates kind of like the Big 12 tournament. But the only difference is the Big 12 tournament, you're playing against a team that you've already played probably once, maybe twice, and you kind of know what the scouting is. You know who you're going against. When you're playing against a team like this in this kind of tournament, Nebraska's back-to-back, right? You don't have any day in between to really prepare. And so it's really just kind of learning on the fly in game. You really can't go over a lot of sets and got to know what it is they're going to run. And so mentally for a player, that almost becomes just like a pickup basketball game, right? I mean, we know what we're doing offensively, but it's like there's not much we really know about this team or their players or what they're going to run or what they're going to run on offense and how we're going to guard that. And so it just kind of becomes a pickup game that he's got to go play basketball. And so it's essentially what it is in these kind of tournaments in this kind of situation.
Coach Tang mentioned following that Mississippi State win, there was really no scout work. I mean, obviously behind the scenes that's going on, but all the focus at that point was on Mississippi State. So you truly have, for your team as a collective, you've got less than 24 hours to make that turnaround. And like you said, Jerome Tang mentioned after the game, I quote, he said, "It's hard to describe it until you go against it," talking about Nebraska's defense. So on any quick turnaround, it's tough, but facing that Nebraska team and the way they operate, what does Coach Tang really mean when he says it's hard to describe it till you go against it?
Well, I think there's a lot of things you can kind of talk about it, and you can try to tell the players like, hey, this is what you're going to face. But even as a player even as a coach, and for sure as a player, you don't really know until you get out there and you see it, right? Until you've kind of experienced it. And once you've experienced it, let's say if we had Nebraska again, if they were still in the Big 12, we'd be like, okay, we know what we're going against, right? We know how they're going to guard. We know how physical they're going to be, how active they're going to be. We know what Mass is going to do when he has the basketball. Like, okay, he kind of plays in a Jokic, type and for their offense. And so we know like he's looking to pass the basketball. We know he's going to crash hard. Okay. We know Sanford, what he's going to do coming off screens, able to shoot the basketball. But it's hard to like go through what those players are going to do. And then for our team to really understand it until they get out there and they see it and they see, okay, this is how they're going to guard us. Like, I mean, early on, Nebraska did a tremendous job of really just corralling the basketball and not allowing us to get into the paint, you know, and just making everything hard. And we had so many turnovers to start the game. And we started the game off in first 5 minutes. We had like 7 turnovers, right? I mean, and so it took our guys a little bit of, you know, adjustment that had to be made, you know, obviously after that and obviously at halftime to like really settle in and say, okay, we understand what it is we're facing, and we understand how we have to attack them on the offensive side. We understand what we have to do defensively as far as we cannot give up these uncontested layups. I mean, the first half, we gave up a slew of uncontested layups because we were trying to defend the 3-point line. Right. And it was like, oh, wait a second. We're over defending the 3-point line, and we need to come back in a little bit and really protect our paint and protect our goal. You know, I thought we did a better job of that in the second half. So I think that's what Coach Tang is just kind of talking about is, you know, anytime you're playing against a team that you never played against, you don't have a lot of time to really scout them. You know, it just makes it tough on both teams. It makes it tough on K-State. It's obviously tough on Nebraska. I thought they just did a really good job of just kind of coming together a little bit quicker than what we did.
You talked about the turnovers early on against Nebraska in that second game. That kind of surprised me a little bit, Clint. When you look at the way Kansas State finished that Mississippi State game, in the second half, it was dominance from the Wildcats. And then you snap your finger and boom, it's a new game. It seemed like none of that carried over into the second night against Nebraska.
Well, I think kind of a coach's nightmare is, you know, when you play really good in one game, you kind of come out the next smelling yourself a little bit, you know, and thinking you're a little bit better than what you are, and you kind of get knocked in the mouth, right? And you kind of get knocked in the face, and you got to pick yourself back up, you know. And so, I mean, it's just kind of the nature of the game, man. Like I said, each game is different. You know, I can think back to, you know, for us when we beat KU at home my senior year, right? We ended the streak. We felt really good. We were top 25 at that point in time. KU, I believe, is number 2. And, you know, when we beat them, and guess what? The very next game we went and lost to Missouri. You know, and it's like, well, how do we lose to Missouri? But yeah, we just beat KU, right? Like it makes no sense, right? And so, you know, as players, you just got to flip the switch, and you know, each game is its own challenge, you know, and then it doesn't matter who the opponent is. You know, you got to come out with the right energy and the right mindset to go get the win. And unfortunately, I didn't think we came out in the first half the way we needed to. I thought we did, obviously picked it up. In the second half, I thought we were tremendous. It was just unfortunate bad bounce at the end of the game.
Okay, Clint, you got the whiteboard ready to go?
I got it.
Just have at it, man. This is all you.
All right, let's talk about the end of the game. So Nebraska did a really good job on offense. They ran a lot of handoffs and a lot of action with their bigs. And what that did is it put K-State in some decision-making that had to be done. But at the end of the game, Sam Hoiberg, let's see if we can see this here. Make sure I can. Maybe I should have did it on my big one here, but here we go. All right, so end of the game, Sam Hoiberg, point guard. All right, he really just wanted to run a handoff action with Sanford. Now, one thing about Sanford is their best shooter. All right, so Sanford had already made 5 threes at this point in time in the game. And so what we're doing now, we are switching everything. And so our guards are talking to one another. You know, Coach Tang obviously wants them to switch. So as he comes and runs this handoff here, we're supposed to just handoff goes, switch it, stay in front, contest the shot, right? And we don't have to worry about Hoiberg here sprinting in to get that rebound and get fouled. But we don't communicate really well. And as he hands it off, we have 2 guys contesting Hoiberg. So as we have 2 guys contesting Hoiberg, our backside is actually in pretty good position. Like this guy kind of slid in. That's where Castillo was at, trying to block him out. We're blocking out the big. We blocked out up top. But that gave Hoiberg a free run right here at the rim. Now, Coach Tang talks about 70% of the time the shot gets taken. If it's taken on this side of the floor, 70% of the time it's going to be a defensive rebound or offensive rebound on the opposite side, right? And so we had all of our guys loaded up on the opposite side to rebound the basketball. But guess what happens? It shot is short. It wedges in the rim and falls short right into Hoiberg's hands. Obviously, Castillo tried to come over and try to contest, ends up fouling him, which is what put Hoiberg there at the free throw line. But all that could have been negated if from the very beginning the switch would have happened like Coach Tang wanted it to, right? And we just switched, so now we can block out Hoiberg. We make them take a tough contested shot with Samford. Obviously doesn't go in, and now we're in position to block out and get that defensive rebound to obviously, I wouldn't say win the game because it was a tie game at that point in time, but obviously have a chance to win the game in overtime. So our excellent, is that how it went? I'm trying to think how it went down. It was 85. Yeah, because it was
86, 85, right?
Yeah. So he made one, missed a second. Yeah, that's what he did. So that's kind of how the end of the game, went. So I'm sure Coach Tang this week in practice, just talking about kind of the end of the game. We just got to be, really together, on that communication and making sure that we're switching everything, and we can't allow guys to get free runs at the rim to get offensive rebounds and putbacks. But other than that, like I said, really hard fought game. I thought our guys, did a really good job coming back. Obviously, Abdi Bashir and the way he could shoot the basketball, brought us back there in the second half, making 5 threes in the second half himself. PJ Haggerty got going and made some really good offensive plays for us. And I thought our defense was a little bit better in the second half. So, hats off to the guys. And now they got to turn the tape, and get ready for Indiana tomorrow.
PJ did what he does in these games. And Clint, great job, by the way. Great stuff. We need to have the clipboard segment maybe every week here on the Clent Stewart Show. But Abdi Bashir is maybe a little more needed, I guess. If you're going to rely on PJ Haggerty night in and night out, that is totally awesome. Somebody else kind of has to step up. And obviously Nate Johnson's been that guy. Abdi Bashir was that guy against Nebraska. Just those two and Nate, if all three of those can get going and everything's clicking on all cylinders, that's just such a dangerous backcourt.
Well, I think that's when we're at our best, right? When we have multiple guys scoring, like we know PJ can obviously score the basketball and he's going to get going. He's going to get his in every game. He's gotten going at some point in time, right? And but I think we're at our best when we have guys like Abdi Bashir, when we have Nate Johnson, when we have David Castillo coming off the bench, when we have Kamari McGriff making plays, inside. That's when I think we really become potent and really hard to stop. And then that allows now PJ, it makes it easier for PJ to get going because, if you have to guard David Castillo and you have to guard Abdi Bashir, right, as shooters, and we got to not guard Nate Johnson, who can shoot it, who can do inside, outside. By the way, Kamari McGriff is, he has 15 points because he's playing hard. We're throwing the ball inside to him and he's scored. Like, now it makes it even harder to guard PJ Haggerty, right? And so, I think that's where we've played at our best. And if we can have multiple guys scoring the ball, then it just makes it easier for PJ to do what he does. And he's obviously a willing passer. He's shown that early on. It's not like, okay, he's scoring the basketball because he's taking, just a load of shots. And then, he's getting, 15, 20 shots, but he's sharing the basketball. He had 7 assists last game. I think he's averaging, I believe it's about 6 a game. Right now, if I'm right, and look up, that's the wrong one. That's Indiana. So let's see. He's averaging assist a game. He is getting 38 assists divided by 6 games. So not a math major, but
neither am I.
But that's right. That's right under 7, right? That's right under 7 a game, 6.5 a game. So he's shown that he can pass the basketball and he's willing to let other guys get involved. And if K-State can continue to do that, and then we have, 5 guys right now averaging double figures, but just got to be consistent in getting those double figures, then I think it makes it easier for everybody.
K-State jumped 19 spots in Ken Palm after the win. I'm not a mathematician either. I did my math wrong and put out on social media that K-State had jumped up 29 spots. Regardless, it was still a great performance against Mississippi State. The metrics loved it, but neither of us are great at math. I'll say that
there you go. But my wife, she's the math major, so
okay.
I should probably consult her before I try to do any subtracting.
That'll be her role on the show, and she's also in the intro too. She's all over the place here on the Clent Stewart Show. Yeah. Defensively, Kansas State's got a lot of room to improve. There's still a long season ahead, but you're giving up obviously 86 points to Nebraska, albeit a good team. You mentioned Josh Hubbard earlier, Clint. That is a true elite guard in college basketball. How much do you think going up against a guy like that here in November can kind of get a team seasoned up for the way a Big 12 guard is going to be like night in and night out to face?
Yeah, it's good. And not only for the team, but even for the coaches, game plan for someone of his caliber. I think it's really good for all around. And so, for our guys, just understanding, what we have to do to try to limit those elite players, as much as we can, and make things tough, make things hard. I think it's really good. And and even for Nebraska, having Sanford, a guy that can really shoot the ball. We're going to face, teams that have guys that are just knockdown shooters that we're really going to have to get out and guard. One obviously tomorrow. DeVries, the coach's son, is a really good player that we're going to have to guard. And so I think it can build confidence. When you play against players like that and you do pretty well. I know Hubbard had 23 points. But I mean, he's a guy that can go for 30 plus. The way he can score the ball, and so it's really nice to see our guys just try to team guard him. It takes a team to guard players like that. On our side, it takes a full team to guard PJ Haggerty. Like, one guy's not going to stop him. And so you really just talk about the team defense has to be superb. And I think for us, it's not, like I said, I've mentioned this multiple times. The defense isn't where Coach Tang wants it to be, but I do think we're improving, and I think we have a lot of room that we will improve, as we get into the Big 12 season, and we're only going to get better on that side of the ball.
One thing I had noted down here, Clint, is so you played with Michael Beasley. Have you seen anybody just put the ball through the net as easily as PJ Haggerty does? I'm curious.
I mean, Beasley's the GOAT when it comes to putting the ball, when it comes to Mr. Buckets.
Fair enough.
He was a walking bucket. So he still is a walking bucket. But PJ, the way he can score at multiple levels, especially given his size, right? Beasley's, 6'8", 6'9", and PJ's 6'3", 6'4", right? And then his size, be able to get into the lane and score the ball, get to the free throw line, obviously can score it from the outside as well. He kind of just takes his time to get to his spots. And he scores it, and so, obviously I played with Jacob Pullen and Pullen, when I was playing with him, he was a freshman, and he obviously only got better and is the all-time leading scorer for Kansas State. Could really score the ball given his size at 6 foot, but he probably had a lot more outside shots than what PJ has taken so far. Jake was just a mastery of shooting the basketball and coming off screens and shooting it, and so I've had the opportunity to watch some true bucket getters, and then obviously I now get an opportunity to watch PJ do what he does. Is pretty special.
One more thing before we go to this Indiana game. I wanted to ask you, Clint, Kansas State in this game, in the second game in 24 hours, right, against Nebraska, you didn't really see Durian Buka on the court much. You didn't see Andre Kostic on the court much. You didn't see Moby Ike Garuka on the court much. You saw guys like CJ and David, they were on a lot, but maybe for all three of those guys I mentioned on maybe an individual level, I don't want to say what was holding them back, but given this was a, back-to-back games here, you would expected more from Kansas State's bench just in the sense of the battle of attrition kicking in.
Well, I think some of it is just the matchups and the way kind of Nebraska plays. They really only play one big in Mast. And they had another kid, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. I was trying not to say it on the radio because I will to mispronounce it, but by you Contungiel.
Take your word for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Who's going to be our expertise on the announcing here on this?
Right. I tried to do everything I could to not have to say his name because I didn't want to mispronounce it on the radio. But he kind of played outside a little bit, kind of floated around, didn't really post up. And so I think it was just kind of a matchup. When you talk about Buka, he needs to play where there's guys that are posting up that are inside. We don't want him being drug out away from the basket a lot, trying to guard ball screens as much, even though he can move his feet pretty decently. But he does his best work around the rim. He really protects the rim really well. And a guy like Mast is a little bit different than most bigs. Mast he's very nimble. They play 5 out. He's very nimble. They play through him, a lot of shot fakes, a lot of ball fakes. And so I think what coaches just kind of saw is, maybe it wasn't the right matchup for Buka to play, which is why, Rapiak obviously gets more minutes. I think Moby probably would have got more minutes in that game. Looked like he was coming off of, an injury, right? He's trying to just kind of get back right. And so maybe hasn't practiced as much. That where coach felt comfortable enough to really put him in the game and then let him get his full minutes that he probably could have saw because, he's athletic enough that he obviously could have played in that game. And then, Kostic, he's still learning on the defensive end. Nebraska, if you watch the game, offensively, they ran a lot of action. Like they cut move, screen. I mean, we talk about a 5-out offense. It was NBA level type of 5-out offense, which if you're not up to par defensively with where you kind of need to be, I mean, you will give up layups, and we gave up a lot of layups. I mean, we did, and so, I think maybe Coach Tang just said, maybe it wasn't the right opportunity for him to kind of get in there from a defensive standpoint, especially once we got the offense going. I mean, Kostic, the biggest part of his game is he can shoot the basketball, he can score the basketball, right? And it wasn't necessarily what we needed. When Haggerty started getting going and Abdi Bashir started getting going, it's like, okay, we got to get stops on the defensive end. We got to get stops, got to get stops. And so that's why you see someone like C.J. Jones getting quite a bit of minutes in there because he's obviously a better defensive player. And you already see Coach Tang is using that at the end of games anyways. I mean, he's subbing in C.J. for maybe Abdi, right? Offense, defense, kind of switches there. So, that's just kind of what he felt we needed. And, like I said, I thought it worked out well. It was unfortunate. It just came down to a bad bounce at the end of the game.
You do want to be the team that dictates the way the game is played, so to speak. Does it concern you at all that, you specifically with Buka, the way you mentioned K-State had to adjust to Nebraska's 4-guard lineup and the way they played? Is that concerning that K-State's not the one that kind of dictates the way it's played?
I don't think it's as concerning as we might think. I think if Buka was a top on our team in scoring, like let's say he really could score the ball inside, and yet we were worried about, okay, can he defend Mass on the other side? Then I'd be a little bit more concerned because, like, hey, we're taking away one of our top 3 scorers right out of the game because we're concerned that he cannot guard on the other side, right? And I don't think, obviously not what it is, right? We know Buka is better on the defensive end, and protecting the rim right now, and just kind of being a big presence, right? And it wasn't like that was something that was really hurting us from Nebraska's side. They scored the ball inside, but it wasn't post-ups. It wasn't something where we say, hey, we need a big guy in there to kind of take that away. It was from them cutting. I mean, they were cutting to the rim hard, back screens, things of that nature. And so, I think that's where it was like, I'm not as concerned, as I would be if it was something else. Like, let's say they just had a big guy in there that was scoring the ball defensive end, and maybe we're thinking the other way, like, we need more offense, and we can't put Buka out there because we just need McGriff out there because he's a better offensive player, but yet we can't stop them on the defensive end. Then I'd be a little bit more concerned, like, hey, maybe we need to kind of dictate the defensive end of the game, say, no, Buka's out there. He needs to get in there to change things up, right? But, I'm not as concerned, just given kind of the way Nebraska played and how Nebraska was scoring the basketball against us.
Good stuff, man. I agree. And this would have been a nice win in terms of your NCAA tournament resume come March, but good thing is you've got not a lot of time to dwell on this one as another a ranked team. They're 25 in the rankings now against Indiana on the road, Clent.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a big game, for us. And there's a couple different storylines, when it comes to Indiana. Their coach is in his second year, and they're a team that really plays hard defensively. Marquette has the most points against them at 77. So you talk about Kansas State, who's, we're averaging 92, 93 points per game. Indiana's only given up 77, so something has to give. Obviously playing on a true road game, those are always hard to get in there and get a good feel for the arena, a good feel for the crowd. Those are always tough, and so we're hoping that we can start out fast, and then really not allow them to get their crowd going. But they're a good team. They share the basketball. They're 11th in the country in assists. They're 3rd in assist to turnover ratio, so they do not turn the basketball over. Only average 8 turnovers a game, which is top 15 in the country. And like I said, defensively, they hold their opponents to 36% from the field. Now, K-State currently is shooting, I believe it's 50 plus from the field. And so when you talk about a team that's shooting it as well as K-State is at 52% from the field and going up against a team that only gives up 36%, we'll see what kind of wins out, either our offense or their defense. But it should be a really good game. Indiana has several players. So the coach's son, DeVries, he's a kid that played at West Virginia for the coach. The coach then obviously came to Indiana. DeVries was hurt. He got hurt and didn't get a chance to play quite a bit within his last few years. But He's a kid that was, I mean, he was Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year his sophomore and junior years. And so it obviously shows you what he can do. They have another kid, Wilkerson, who was the Conference USA All-Conference first team the last 2 years for Sam Houston State. So those are their two guys that will have the basketball in their hands. They both can score it really well. One averages 19 in DeVries, the other one averages 17 in Wilkerson. And then kind of a third storyline that I'm sure Coach Driscoll is looking forward to is Josh Harris. Actually played for Coach Driscoll at the University of North Florida last year. So Josh Harris is a sophomore. Unfortunately, he's hurt, so he won't be playing in the game. But I'm sure Coach Driscoll is looking forward to just having an opportunity to talk to him before the game and kind of reminisce on kind of how they connected and him recruiting him to University of North Florida. So that should be a pretty special moment for Coach Driscoll as we go up against Indiana.
That's becoming more and more common, Clint,
Right.
isn't it? Your chore against Mississippi State on Thursday. You had Ames and Bramlage a week before. That's just kind of the world of college basketball, man. But
that's what it is. You're playing
something
against players everywhere now.
Yep, it's Wild West right now. Get my microphone back here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
You look back. I think of the St. John's game last year. That was the first true road game for this team, right? And it was awesome for Kansas State to go out to Kansas City and play in front of a lot of purple. That's great, but you really haven't gotten a taste of anything hostile, not even close. So I remember Jerome Tang after that game mentioning this, oh, we want to call a timeout, but it's too loud and your team just goes and then turns the ball over when your coach, if this was a quiet venue, you'd just call a timeout. But there's little things like that sometimes you don't maybe think about or can't be taught until you're there. How much of a concern is that for, like we said here, college basketball nowadays there's a lot of newcomers on this team?
Well, I think you find out a lot about your team when you're on the road. Obviously at home is great, but when you're at home, you're in your own environment. The guys are waking up in their own bed. They're going to class that day if they have class. And they're familiar with the court. Obviously, the routines, right? The shoot around, the pregame meal. It's you're really comfortable. And even being in Kansas City, it's not that true atmosphere that you're going to have. Obviously from Nebraska did a great job bringing a lot of fans, right? But it's just not the same atmosphere of going into another arena where it's going to be 95, 96, 97%, their fans cheering for them. And the other team is comfortable, right? The other team now is in their own element. They're in their own, hey, going to class, hey, pregame meal, hey, shoot around. Like this is all just normal routine. They're not waking up in the hotel. And so this is where you find out, a lot about your team and then that resilience that Coach Tang talks about, that resolve that they have to have, and just how they come out and play. Like, are they in the right mindset that they come out with a lot of fire and energy so we can go get the job done? Or do they, come out and, a little bit sluggish because of, maybe slept a little bit too long in the hotel, right? Or maybe, just not locked in the way they need to be. Maybe the pregame meal wasn't to their liking because it was a little bit different they're used to having, or whatever it might be. So, I think we'll find out a lot about Kansas State in this game. And for me, we kind of mentioned it. I think we know what PJ Haggerty's going to be able to do. I think it's going to be really big for our other guys to get going in this game and play really well from the beginning of the game as well.
I need to keep track of the quality of my coverage based off of the medium meal pregame. I mean, if it's Qdoba, I'm giving you my A+ work. If it's some meatloaf, might not be there. My preview on GoPowercat, my written preview is going to be up on Tuesday in the morning. So I'll keep my thoughts for there. Clint, how do you see this game unfolding?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be a really good offense against a really good defense. And that's not taking anything away from Indiana and their ability to score the ball. They score, I think they average about 88 points per game. So they obviously can score the basketball as well. They're coming in as the favorites in this game. But, I think if Kansas State cannot get out to a slow start, I think that's going to be the biggest piece of this game. Like, we can't start the game like we did against Nebraska and then expect for us to come fight back in the second half in a game where we won't have any, very few fans right there at the game versus obviously what they have. So I think if we could start well, and we know what PJ Haggerty's going to do, we need Abi Bashir to be making shots. We need David Castillo to make some shots. We need McGriff to play really tough inside. We're going to need Nate Johnson. I'm sure he'll be on, either Tucker DeVries or Lamar Wilkerson. He'll be on one of those two, and really, if he can shut down one of those two guys and really make them kind of turn into a one-man show on the offensive end, I think that'll be really big for us. But that means we've got to do multiple things to go win this basketball game, and it's never easy on the road. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Obviously Indiana's the favorite. They should, quote unquote, should win at home. But if we can do those things I just mentioned, I think we'll give ourselves a chance to go in there and win.
Clent Stewart was on the call on Friday night against Nebraska. Are you excited to just watch one on the couch, or do you want to be doing that every game, Clint?
I have a lot of fun doing it. I'll tell you that TV is a lot different than the radio. You have to describe things a little bit differently when it's the radio than what you do on the TV. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy, obviously, basketball, being around basketball with my experience playing, coaching. Talking basketball is something I love to do. So I enjoy either way.
Appreciate it, Clint. Tuesday night, K-State hits the road at Indiana. We'll be back soon. I'm not sure when exactly we'll be back, Clint. Maybe we'll do a live show at some point here in the coming days. But appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll talk to y'all real soon.
Thank you for watching The Clent Stewart Show, your Kansas State basketball podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to GoPowercat.com. This has been a GoPowercat and Spirit Street production.